Good afternoon folks, 21st Century Caveman here. Hope everybody's safe, hope everybody's well. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Now, I recently received a comment from one of my subscribers during which this person asked me a couple of questions, and it was such a good query that I thought it was worthwhile making a video about. So I'm just going to read the comment out now, and then I shall take you to the bench, reset the camera, and during the course of the video I will give my response. So the question was from somebody called Hassan. So Hassan, first of all, thank you very much indeed, and apologies for the fact that it's taken a few days to actually get a response together for you, but as I say, it was such a good question I thought it actually warranted doing a video about it rather than in just tapping in my reply. So I'm just going to read it out for the benefit of the audience. So, absolute great and detailed video. I'm just trying to get more into DIY projects and woodworking. I've previously just done really minor projects with a handsaw, nails and a hammer really. I've invested in some power tools now, a drill, circular saw, impact driver and angle grinder. But I'm still trying to actually learn how to properly use them. Great to hear, caution is important. The only tools I've used so far are the drills and they're great. I wanted to ask what the table type things are that you use, and he made a reference to the video. And they seem to have clamps on them to hold wood. So he was referring to a video where I was actually making some raised wooden planters. Also, thanks for mentioning the metric speed square in the video. I'm looking to get one of them too, but wanted to ask you if you think a 7-inch one would suffice, or if I should get a larger one. Also, are there any other bits and pieces you reckon I should look into that could help me with various projects over the years? Please and thank you in advance. Hassan. So Hassan, once again, thank you very much indeed for your queries. I'm going to reset the camera and I'll get back to you. Okay folks, so this is the clip the gentleman was referring to, and in this clip you can see that I'm cutting down some boards using a circular saw. Now these have actually been secured to a Black & Decker workbench. There are different models. I'm not sure whether it's clear from the picture which model this is, but I'm also securing the timbers using some clamps, and you can see that all of them basically to use the clamps to secure the timber to the workbench. Now I do actually have 3 types of clamps which are hanging up in the video clip you can see now. They're not ever so expensive, they're all sort of, middle of the range really. The first 2 from the left I got from Screwfix, and the larger ones I bought from either Aldi or Lidl. So these clamps were purchased on offer. I never, if I can possibly help it, pay full price for anything. So the black and orange one was Magnuson, that was from Screwfix. These ones are very good. Look, the Irwins are very easy to use. I got them in a sale, as I say. And this one at the top here, it was either from Lidl or from Aldi. So these aren't recommendations, by the way. They're just illustrations of the clamps I've been using. And there are pros and cons to all of these, I suppose, really. The biggest problem I've found is the fact that the one we're going to have a look at now, the black and orange one, the Magnuson one, I mean look, don't get me wrong, these are nice strong clamps, but I have noticed that there are 1 or 2 problems with them. So what you tend to find with these is the fact that the plastic end caps which go over the steel bits here, they do tend to fall off, and on all of these would have actually got some sandpaper, scuffed up the ends, the metal bits of the clamps, and then used some super glue to glue the plastic end caps back on basically. Now another problem with these is the fact that, I've got half a dozen of these Magnuson clamps, and on 2 of them the end bits have actually come out, so I've actually had to use some super glue and then bang them back in with a hammer. So clearly these aren't top quality clamps. but they don't need to be, because I'm not a professional joiner or anything of that nature. I'm a DIY bod, and with a little bit of TLC, they've actually come good. Now, in terms of whether or not there's anything else you need to buy in anticipation of projects you'll be doing in the future, I think the first thing I'd say is the fact that I would not advocate buying stuff on the basis that you might need it. I would recommend keeping your money in your pocket, and if you find yourself in a situation whereby you find that you've done projects, you know, perhaps 2 or 3 times, and you see a piece of equipment which could make that process easier, safer, quicker and more efficient, then yeah, by all means buy it. As I say, I work on the basis that I don't really buy anything unless it's in a sale, so that way I'm actually maximising the value. However, having said that, there are certain items of equipment which I feel need to be purchased. So in your comments you mentioned that you have some power tools, and because you're using power tools, it's absolutely essential, it's critical that you make sure you have some PPE. PPE stands for personal protective equipment, and this will significantly enhance your personal safety and well-being if something happens. So these don't really come in any particular order. I've just put a few bits and bobs on the bench here, look. But basically we've got some ear defenders on the left hand side here, look. We've got a selection of gloves, and the different types of gloves will depend on what you're actually doing at that time. And also we have some eye protection. Now you can't really differentiate between which ones are more important than the other, so I think what I would say is, in terms of your PPE, basically make sure you have a decent pair of gloves, some ear defenders and some eye protection. So I would consider that to be one group of absolutely core essential products you need, especially when you're using power tools. Now, in terms of personal protection, now I can't state clearly enough how important it is to have these, especially when you're using power tools. So this is a portable RCD adapter. Now you can either get them, so that's the little grey thing which I'm just picking up now, look. This is actually attached to this 25-metre extension lead. Once again, I got this piece of equipment from Screwfix, got it at a good price. But the RCD adapter is actually attached to the end of the cable. However, you can buy them relatively inexpensively, and when you look on the web, I've seen these as low as £5.99 actually. So basically what you do, you press the red button to test it to make sure it's working properly, and then you press the reset button, and if you're connected to electricity there'll be an orange light. Providing the orange light's on there, you know you're good to go. And if you cut into the cable, and it will automatically kill the current, and basically it will save your life by preventing you from being electrocuted. So like I say, this particular one here which we're looking at, it's actually on the extension lead, but you can actually have them also individually. So you just stick them into your socket on the wall, then put the plug of your extension or your power tool into it, make sure it's working properly, and boom, you've got a piece of equipment here which would save your life from electrocution if, God forbid, that scenario presented itself. Right, okay guys, so moving on. Now, because you've got a small selection of power tools, and I must say they are the most important ones to my mind, I am of course assuming that you've got the basics such as a selection of screwdrivers, hammer, measuring tape, Stanley knife, all that good stuff. But the more you challenge yourself and the bigger and more important the projects, you need to make sure that you have a spirit level, or indeed spirit levels. So this just gives you an idea as to how level my workbench is, and you know we're absolutely pretty spot on there, look, okay. So I would always recommend getting the more expensive ones, because you do tend to find that you do drop them, they do get knocked, and the cheaper ones ain't gonna last anywhere near as long. So the spirit levels, the ones I'm looking at here, Stabila, they are very strong heavy duty ones. They came in a pack where there was a longer one and a shorter one, and I also have a little small plastic one which, funnily enough, I found behind a radiator in a house which I purchased for refurbishment. So that was a bit of a freebie for which I was very grateful. Now, for anybody who does DIY, the subject itself can incorporate a number of different things, but one of the tools you will definitely need is a sander. Now, I'm a great advocate of the Black & Decker mouse. This is the second one I've had now. I think they're absolutely fantastic. Now, as with anything, you always get your positive reviews and your negative reviews, but I can honestly say that this is such a wonderful little tool. I would highly recommend it to anybody. Now, there are similar sanders, different types of sanders, different manufacturers and all the rest of it. This is one I'm used to using. It's the one which I have the major experience with, and I've used it for absolutely stacks of stuff. So you need to get yourself a sander. This is one which I can recommend. Once again, look out for this sort of thing when it's on special offer. Now, this here is called a Tri-Square. It's a really good quality one. I've had it many years now. It's made of blue steel with a top quality wooden handle and brass fitments. Now, the thing with this is the fact that really you can only measure 90 degrees, although if you've got a little bit of nous about you can use it in other ways. But the main purpose of this Tri-Square is to make sure that you're able to mark and cut things square. Now, when I bought my circular saw, it became clear that there was another animal out there which was far more sophisticated and basically had far more utility. This is known by a number of names, and it's commonly known as a speed square or a rafter square. There's loads of different tools out there which enable you to measure angles to get things, you know, at 90 degrees, 45 and all the rest of it. But this is absolutely fantastic, and I wish I'd have come across it before. So this here, look, is a very good quality one. I think this is called a Johnny Square or something like that, but it'll tell us on the other side. So this enables us to measure loads and loads of different angles, and also it's perfect for enabling you to use the wide edge as a guide when you're using a circular saw to make sure that your cuts are accurate and completely square. Even I don't know how to use all of the stuff on here, but what I can say is the fact that I wouldn't be without it. Now, because I've used this so extensively and because it's so helpful, I did actually end up buying a bigger version, which is the equivalent of a 12-inch, which is a 300mm. So this is a bigger one. The quality isn't quite so good, but once again, I got this, I'm trying to think where I got it from actually. It was either eBay or from Amazon, so the price was actually about the same, but it is a decent one, but not as good as the smaller one. Now, you did ask whether or not you ought to be considering the smaller one or a larger one. Now, if you can afford it, I would definitely say get both, but if you just have to have one, just get the smaller one, because you'll find that it has much more utility and you can use it in more circumstances. Now, when I was talking about using these as a guide for cutting stuff with your circular saw, you will see that the edges of the larger one are taller. They're much wider, and therefore it gives you much more security, and it's much safer when you're using something as dangerous as a circular saw to cut wood and trim it back. And here we can see how much wider the edge of the larger one is, and why it affords you much greater safety and does actually provide a much better guide. So moving on then, and the next one may or may not come as a surprise to those of you who regularly watch my DIY videos, and that's a tool belt. This particular one, it's made by Stanley, cheap as chips, and it's a decent quality one for occasional use. And what you tend to find is the fact that it enables you to get your tools organised in a very convenient manner, and also to make sure that you have your most essential tools nearby and accessible, and you can clearly have more than one tool on your person, which just makes things a lot more efficient and a lot easier to use. Now in your comments you did mention that you had a drill and also an impact driver. Now with particular reference to the impact driver, you do need to make sure that you have some high impact accessories for this, for example drill bits, because what you'll find is the fact that these impact drivers, they are so powerful that they will quickly destroy just your normal run-of-the-mill equipments. They'll just chew them up in no time at all. So you need to make sure you invest in some. Now I've got quite a large number of the Milwaukee ones in the little red plastic Tic Tac boxes. I'm not saying they're the best, I just happen to be able to purchase those at a very good price, which is the reason I bought them. The DeWalt ones, they were okay, but I wouldn't say they're any better than the Milwaukee ones. But yeah, if you've got an impact driver, you need to make sure that you have impact accessories. Right guys, so I've already talked about the workbench and clamps, and when you're using power tools you really do need to make sure that you have something secure to use them on, because they can be very dangerous indeed. So you certainly need a nice workbench. There are loads of different sorts, loads of different makes. The Black & Decker, as I said previously, there are one or two different models of this. I can't remember the model I've got here, but I've had it for donkey's years. It's extremely handy, very versatile, and I've stood on it to get on roofs and all the rest of it, and to cut the tops of hedges. It's very, very strong, very durable. So having gone through the list of items which I feel you really ought to consider, I'm now going to attempt to prioritise these, and I'm going to start with what I believe is the most important first. So we're just going to go down the list from 1 to whatever it is, in order of importance. This is clearly a very subjective thing, and depending on these sorts of things which you do will depend on the priority which you afford to each one of those and where it will appear on your list. So here we go then.